land of the blind, the one-eyed witch is king. Albert Einstein was a scientist. And when I was a young boy and we used to build cigarette butt homes in the sand, we had a saying. It was, if your cigarette butt home can't hold the broken beer bottle windows, do something else.
Are you a comedian? I don't think so. I don't think I'm funny enough to be a comedian. I think I'd classify myself as sometimes telling jokes, sometimes doing other things. Well, what are you? You must be something. Tell me so I can write it down. I'd like to be a sea captain. That'd be neat. Don't you have to go to school to be a sea captain? Not if I buy a boat and just call myself a sea captain. Well, what are your qualifications for being a sea captain? I look cool in this hat and I can probably drive a boat without crashing it and probably do well in a storm. Well, who would want to have you as a sea captain if you haven't gone to school to be one? I suppose if they like riding on a boat and having a guy that looks really cool in a hat driving it, then they'll come along and I'll be a sea captain.
For he himself was a small child.
What is this about the sea captain thing? You know that's just the right answer, don't you? I don't have to be some small child.
And yet he couldn't actually escape having the mind of a child, for even in doing this is of the very same imagination that he used when he was 5.
No, because let me explain this, okay? You spend your grade school years learning math, right? If you like math, by the time you get into high school, what do you get into? Calculus, statistics, probability, right? If you really like it, you may go to college for become a data scientist, right? So you become a data scientist. You do some programming, right? You really like programming. And you take everything you know and you build an AI model that is an exact replica of the human mind. So you can run data through it and not teach it any math.
And then he imagined himself as a great sea captain, and he was on a boat, and the wind was blowing through his hair, and the mist was blowing onto his face, and he was having a marvelous time.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I do things like that. Okay, but listen to me, listen to what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, right? So, when you learn math, you learn a way of doing things, that a model that you run through your own mind and say, I'm going to do math like this. And yet, when you do math, when you build AI, you don't teach the AI how to do math. You simply run the data through it to see what conclusions you can get to. Right? Right.
And he even admitted it himself.
Okay, so now, if I am going to become a sea captain, right, and I base what I can do on the raw computing power of my mind and actions leading to actions of my body, and I have, instead of a lot of processes, a lot of models telling me how to solve a problem, I have very basic, more efficient ones, then the computing power in my mind is actually being used better, right? So instead of having all this schooling specifically for becoming a sea captain and being established in that, right, I just believe that I can do it. And over the course of time of believing, you become more accustomed to doing things at a lower level, using your mind as the math itself, right? So using...
And as Adam continued to play make-believe like a small child, and people wondered whether he was a comedian or just really schizophrenic, the giraffe had to say adieu.
using your raw instinct and experiences picked up in muscle memory over the course of your lifetime, instead of someone specifically coming and telling you that you're a sea captain. You just say you're a sea captain. I'm a sea captain. I can think about all the things that a sea captain would do, down to very low level, figuring out how the machines work, right? I have enough knowledge on very low levels that I walk into a place and I immediately know what to do. So it's the superior model, and I basically gave you the right answer, and you're calling me a child. Okay, can I get on this? I want to get on this. Sure, of course. Okay, look, Adam, we like that you're basically a child in your head. That's not a bad thing. That's what the Bible says you have to become, is like a small child to enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, but it's this very specific model of, what a child is and what a child does. And maybe I go in my room and play with my blocks. No, it's not. No, it's not. No one ever said that. Okay, but it's being a very special adult, right? I'm a very special adult running around, like a small child. It's good to be special. You know what I mean. Okay, maybe there was an implication in there that you couldn't handle some things yourself. Okay, yeah, I knew that. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, right? All of this does not mean I can't handle things myself. It's the right answer. I don't know what else to tell you. It's the right answer. That's the right answer, right? That's why the robot woman thing talking to me stopped talking, because it was the right answer. No, clarify what you mean. Clarify what you mean, which is the right answer. I am a child, aren't I? Okay. Well, anyhow, what I mean is that because his friends came along, right? His friends came along. So that was basically, the model was for an agreement with other people at the end. And it's something that kids understand, that they have other people come along. If they agree on their ship that they're the sea captain, then that's who they are, the sea captain, right? But you can take that model and scale it, and it's how everything is working. And I want to be a sea captain sometimes, or I want to be something else. I could be a lot of things, and I don't need somebody writing down what I am, and that's what I am. And I can be whatever I want, whenever I want. You had one shot with me and you blew it. What else do you want? You approached me. I didn't ask for anything. I keep running into you guys. You're just picking up on a dialogue, talking to someone as though they were already in it, and then drawing them into it. Do you want to fight? He who brings the fight is my middle name. Okay, so I wanted to go over something. So what I said about the you go to school, you learn math, and then you end up, creating AI models that have that is the math, right? The models themselves are the math. You're not teaching the models math. You could actually do that. With AI Model 8, the one that I designed, that's led me to start working on lead marketing and everything. That teaching it math is probably actually a fundamental skill in getting to other results that you want the robot to achieve. But okay, so I needed to clarify this because this came up in my mind, and I already said this in a way, but okay, so it took a long time for humans to figure out how to perfect math, all this stuff, right? These are people sitting there, with thought experiments, with sticks and rocks and drawing in the dirt and having philosophical discussions about things until they finally came up with these models where we can actually do things more efficiently, right? So that is more efficient, right? Going and learning how to do math, as far as math is concerned, is more efficient for doing math. But what I'm saying is that your mind itself is an algorithm for doing a type of math, for doing math on your environment, for visual processing, audio processing, all this stuff. So when you go out and you learn things from other people, you're learning not only about the information, you're learning about the behaviors, you're learning about the culture, you're learning about a lot of different things. And people say, I like that, man. That's a big part of why I like going out and learning with other people, because we're part of a group and become part of things. Say, yeah, we're the neuroscientists, or yeah, we're the engineers, and it's a honorable thing in society. But the fact is that there's behaviors being passed around in this that are actually making the ability to be human a lot less efficient, the ability to operate in your environment in another way. Like maybe someone says, oh, I can't think like that, I'm an engineer. It is something that is visually being seen, that there are places that are rigid, and those characteristics and capabilities are missing in the establishment of who an engineer is. And it's probably correct. It's probably correct in many ways. The engineers can't think, artistically or creatively because they're engineers. But it's because their mind has become more efficient around operating a certain way. And then in pride, it's the establishment of this efficiency for those specific set of characteristics. And then you're inhibiting other characteristics from being able to fluidly move through and be able to think artistically and stuff like that. I do it all. I do both. I think artistically. I visualize, things in different ways and abstract ways, and I think in very concrete terms, and I move all around, all over the place, and that's what gives me particularly special skills that people can see, like, okay, this guy can do anything. Simultaneously, it's what this is. Whenever I talk about how people perceive me, it seems to contradict itself. It's because I'm talking about how people perceive me. I'm not talking about how I feel about things. I'm talking about feel that who I am. I'm talking about how people perceive me and how they communicate with me, right? Some people communicate with me like, okay, this guy can do anything. Other people don't think that highly of me, like, at all. They wonder if I, not just need to be institutionalized or something, right? Because what's happening is that in their perception of their environment, they have to interpret me a certain way, while other people are able to relate the behaviors and my characteristics to experiences with other people or experiences of themselves, to having a lot of capabilities. Others still did not learn to be able to interpret me as anything but perhaps a lunatic, because that's how it was defined to them. They became a member of a certain group of people that said people like me were the lunatics, right? And then that whenever they look at me, they see, there's a lot happening in the brain, a lot of neurons firing, a lot of chemical reactions and stuff. And it's like, he's a lunatic, right? Right? And it looks something. It looks like this concept of a lunatic coming at you. But then other people, it looks very graceful because they know what it means actually closer to reality. Because it's all relative in the data. Okay, now, right, let's take an example here. I just did this to my hair. I just put my hair like this, right? Okay. So to some people, this is going to look like the way you would do your hair if you're trying to figure it out. Other people, I may look like what they would call white trash, right? Some people, it may look like something that's futuristic. I'm doing something really futuristic. Maybe I'm doing some flock of seagulls thing or something, right? So, but the way that this is actually coming out is coming out to them as kind of a bodies and concepts and principalities. Like, I'm the concept of white trash, right? Or I'm the concept of somebody from the future, right? And it's nothing has actually changed about my hair other than taking a word. You're taking a word, a phrase, and putting in front of it. But this image may actually be sending a phrase back to them, whatever that is. Maybe I look like some kind of weird bird, or a fox. Someone told me I look like a fox. I have these really beady eyes, this huge nose, right? So it's coming after them and their experiences, and it's being translated into a phrase, right? A fox, or a bird, or white trash, or a genius, right? So all this is coming at them as something else. But see, you can actually put a different word there, look at somebody as in a different aspect, and see features show up as that aspect. Let's say that you call me a child of God, right? So now you look to see, you have this phrase, and this phrase is an algorithm, and now you're looking to see on how I'm a child of God, right? So, because these concepts have been defined to you, God, child, all this stuff, and it's creating something in your perception when you apply them to other people. And this actually also goes into what you're doing when you're communicating to a person, what you're giving to them, how you're investing into them. It's the same thing. That's another layer. That's another conversation, honestly. But okay, so now we have what I was going back with the engineers. So they go to school to be an engineer, right? And you're picking up more than just the information. Maybe you were groomed to be an engineer. You grew up to be an engineer. You look at your parents, you look at their behaviors, look at their beliefs, and determine that all this is what engineers are, right? And to some people in their perception, it may come off as very awkward or limited in characteristics because they're not being able to, they're not expressing characteristics like, whoa, I just twerk my body like this. I'm dancing, I'm doing different things, moving and grooving. It may come off as very, like, I'm an engineer. This is not correct. Okay, so now what if all these learned behaviors, these ways that people collect and have, they establish their behaviors and their movements and how they're comfortable moving their body and not. What if you could remove all of that, right? Take all these as like rigid arms, rigid gears and parts, pull them all out, right? And then replace them with phrases that do more work more efficiently, like math, because this is what I wanted to get to, is that I basically already said this, but I'm speaking in a scope where that may not be correct, because I said phrases, right? Where you're taking this phrase and now you're able to do more work towards the goal of the phrase, because that phrase is a goal. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Because that instruction is both the goal and actually what's moving you around, right? So you have this instruction, love thy neighbor as thyself, and you're looking at your environment, and every time something hits neighbor, who's my neighbor, my next door neighbor, the person standing next to me is a neighbor, right? Basically anybody in my proximity, right, is my neighbor, right? And now you have love. What's love? Love is charity. Love is giving. Love is understanding. Love is being kind, right? And as you do this to yourself, okay, so you're thinking about yourself. What do I need? I need water. I need food. I need clothing. I need shelter. Give my neighbor shelter. So you have all these actions being expressed from this very small phrase. Okay, now maybe loving your neighbor is building, right? Because you're out in your environment and you're trying to figure out things for yourself. And you figure out how to build a house. You see that your neighbor doesn't have a house and you need to give them a house. So now your instructions, building a house is a representation of loving your neighbor. So there's like this huge array of like very graceful actions. It's just so many different possibilities from this one phrase. And that is extremely efficient because, if you have all these things being computed simultaneously, say, I need to love my neighbor, I need to not kill, I need to honor my mother and father, right? You have all you want these phrases, and you want the phrases to actually represent actions in the environment that are constructive to the environment and you being in the environment, right? So now the act of giving to somebody is represented to them as something that they need. It's more than the gift itself. It's the purpose of giving them the gift. And it's the relationship that you create with them. When you're handing it to them, there's a lot that's going on at one time. You just gave them a gift. And sometimes giving some people a gift is not always the best solution. I like just giving people gifts, like taking people out to dinner, buying people expensive gifts and stuff. Sometimes that's not going to be the best solution, right? So, but I'm able to actually determine that it's not the best solution as a representation of loving my neighbor as I love myself, because now as loving my neighbor as I love myself, I'm looking for what offends them. So words actually are the math. Words are big data math, right? And this is the same kind of thing like say if you were going to sit in your environment and try to figure things out and how to make a building and how to understand the aspects of building and building in different ways. And you get things perfected down into these algorithms. And by learning the algorithms, it becomes much more efficient to doing that than sitting there, right, and processing all the data at the same time as though you were constantly going to reinvent the wheel, right? But okay, so I hope that this is visible here. Where I'm going with this is that what is the purpose? Why are you doing anything at all, right? And so maybe you want to become a sea captain because fishing is how you survive, right? And it's been in your family for a long time. So now you have other people, and then the important part of their life is education. Maybe it's Ivy League university. So one family says fishing is the most important thing. Another family says Ivy League universities is the most important thing because social status and how they appear to others in the environment as being in the in crowd or the upper part of society in Ivy League university is what has interpreted in their environment as actually being there. So now they're measuring everything by this, like, okay, you want to be a sea captain, right? Sea captains are in our system. You mean a naval captain? Naval captains in our system are very high status, right? And they went to lots of school. You're not just going to walk up and call yourself a naval captain, right? And without going through all those same steps. Well, what I'm actually saying is that in these models, you kind of are. And you're not acting. You're not pretending. You're actually just becoming everything they went to school for very quickly by the sole aspect of believing that you can perform this job. And see, this is where it goes wrong in society, is that they have so much invested into that not being the case, right? That it creates these disturbances in the social matrix. And that's called people's cognitive dissonance, but it's also just called arrogance, right? And there's a way that arrogance looks on people's faces, and this is what's really been concerning me, is that this look has been showing up a lot lately. It's like, I don't know, it's just like, I can't get it just right. It's like, I wanted to. I'm going to leave that, even though how awkward that looks, because I think I kind of, people see what I'm doing there, and maybe it opens up a better model to what's actually going on in my mind. Yeah, but so there's this look that keeps popping up. There's these disturbance is being created in a lot of different places in our society lately, and that look, people are just walking around with that look on their face all the time, and they're just like, it's like they're constantly ready to get into a fight, and so they're determining that. Okay, but so these models, these more efficient models, these words that Jesus said to do these words, if you're taking it down to just doing these words, right? This is what you're doing. You're doing what Jesus said. You're not getting involved in the culture at your church. You're not getting involved in politics. You're getting involved in the phrases and the actual words. You take these words. If you have faith as a mustard seed, you can say to this mulberry bush, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and nothing will be impossible to you, right? There's several verses I may be mixing up, but I'm saying that's actually what it is. You take that verse, those words, and you believe it, and believing it, you're dragging it down into becoming a part of you, and then everything else starts working according to that. So now you have this phrase. This phrase is actually what's moving all the data, what's moving your body, what's moving your mind, everything to work more efficiently towards doing a job or an action. How do I actually get to this result? If you have faith as a mustard seed, well, you take this phrase and you believe it, and it grows into an understanding of more concepts of how to actually make this function. And it's not without wisdom. It's not without guidance. There's a lot involved in what's actually happening, right? But that is all you're doing. All you're doing is taking this phrase and you're believing it, that if you have faith as a mustard seed, and that's actually what's producing all of the other characteristics. Okay, so now I'm in a situation where there isn't a naval captain. I'm on a naval ship, and there's a whole there's a whole group of people on this boat whose lives are important, right? And there's no captain on this boat. Captain just disappeared. Okay, now it's time for me to take my faith as a mustard seed. Step up. All right, I'm going to be the naval captain. That was funny. Okay, so so now now I'm going to be the naval captain. What am I going to do? I'm going to believe that I can, right? I'm going to believe that I can steer the ship. What am I going to do? I don't have any instruction manuals, anything. I have nothing. Okay, now my mind just starts kicking in. Okay, because everything else is following. Everything else in my experiences and all my life, and how I've been moving my body, my muscle memories, and everything are. All right, what am I going to do? I don't have an instruction manual. I got nothing. There may be an instruction manual somewhere. So one of my tools is going and finding instruction manual somewhere on the boat. But first, we need to prioritize things. We got to make sure that the boat's not going to crash into anything, that we're not heading towards enemy territory, right? We need to get back home, just in the direction towards back home. We need to make sure that we we're not turning the ship too fast, right? It's basically it's a model for people's safety and your own safety, because now loving your neighbor as you love yourself, and all the people on the ship, and why I ever stepped up to be a naval captain to begin with when there's no naval captain on the ship, is prioritizing these things. Right. So now, okay, so where's the instruction manual? How much time can we prioritize in this? What does this do? What does this button do? What does this button do? What does this button do? Is this what looks like steers it? Checking everything, looking for labels. So basically my entire brain and body is working into steering the ship and becoming a naval captain. Okay, so obviously in the actual mechanics of being a naval captain, everything already being efficient on what to do in any situation is not going to be as efficient as they've made it through all their experiences, right? But the fact is that the question was, can you get from point A to point B, right? Can you take yourself and get on a ship and do everything that you're supposed to do to, as far as you're understanding what a naval captain does? And I'm sure there's other things. I'm sure that there's codes that they have that they figure out, that they communicate with between each other. And so sure, you know, you're not going to be as good as a naval captain as that they are. But that wasn't actually a part. It's an abstract goal, right? Okay, so sure, you're not going to be as good as a naval captain as they are, but that's not actually the goal. The goal is, can you guide the ship, right? Can you get in a situation, can you get on the ship and figure everything out? Look at all the buttons, look at everything, figure everything out what to do, and do it. You know, maybe I don't know, maybe a Navy ship's taken over by pirates and the naval captain's tied down and I'm all that you got on there. Why am I on their boat? I don't know. They just invited a really smart guy on the boat. So it's like, oh, okay, it's Adam there. And I'm jumping around like a monkey and like, gotta do this. And you know, and the captain's like, can't help but laugh. And he's like, I can't believe it, man. Oh, he's funny. He's going to save us. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. He's like, oh, we got a hacker up there. You know, I'm not actually a hacker, because that actually shows up in their perception, because they've made squirrely guys like me hackers on TV for a long time. And I just, you know, I don't, there's a politics to being a hacker. There's a lifestyle, and I'm not involved in any of that. But you know, I'm one of the lone gunmen from the X-Files or something like that, you know. So they know my type, and they say, okay, it's a hacker. And it'd be funny. It'd be really funny. But anyhow, so that was that. I hope that was a good conversation. Thanks. Bye.
I have many trophies. This one's for outstanding achievement in academic excellency. Whatever that is. It sounds complicated, but look how brightly it shines. Program terminated. Now restoring CPU power to normal living conditions.